The 10 light stones said to whisper in dreams. Some stones are not meant to be worn. They're meant to sleep beside each other, across the world. From Himalayan monasteries to forgotten forest shrines, there are crystals said to do only one thing: not protect, not reveal, but to heal the dreamer. They don't bring visions. They don't chase nightmares. They do something much quieter. They repair the places inside us that broke while we slept. If you've ever watched the stars through closed eyes, if you've ever woken up from nothing and still felt like something returned to you, you're in the right place. Welcome back to Gemstone Kingdom, a channel built not just for collectors, but for rememberers. For those who believe some stones weren't made for profit, but for peace. Tonight's journey is unlike any we've taken. These are not just crystals. These are light stones, said to whisper only when the soul is listening, said to return what was lost, somewhere in sleep. One of them, ranked first on this list, it is said to carry the imprint of the first human dream ever remembered, and today, neuroscientists are studying it, not for what it shows, but for what it restores. You won't see it on red carpets, but the people who use it don't care about light. They care about stillness, about silence, about coming home softly. Let's begin. Somewhere in every dream, there's a first ripple, a tremor, not of color, but of clarity. It doesn't speak, it doesn't guide, it simply shows the path. The ancients said this stone could calm the nervous system just by sitting in the same room. And when placed under the moon, it glows not with light, but with permission. Permission to let go of memory, of noise, of the tension that keeps the dreamer from falling in. This is where the journey begins. Rank 10th, clear quartz, the whisper that leads through the veil. Beneath the cold veins of the French Alps, deep within Brazil's interior forests, and hidden in the deserts of Madagascar, clear quartz has appeared in almost every ancient civilization known to archaeologists. But no two cultures used it the same way. In Mesopotamia, fragments were found in burial chambers, shaped like small rods wrapped in linen and placed near the forehead. In Japan, ancient Shinto priests used carved quartz spheres as spirit anchors, believed to draw down guidance from celestial deities. And in Mesoamerica, shamans buried them upright, like antennas, believing they would guide the dreamer through the labyrinth of the underworld. Geologically, clear quartz is common, but the right quartz, the kind used in sacred ritual, is anything but. It must be flawless, without iron stains, milky zones, or fractures, and it must form naturally into terminated hexagonal points, not cut, not forced, just lifted gently from the earth, as if the crystal chose to be found. In Madagascar, traditional miners still follow an old code. They dig with wooden tools, never metal. And before extraction, a bowl of water and a white cloth must be offered to the earth, so the stone knows it's being taken with respect. Without the ritual, many locals believe the quartz will cloud itself or break during cutting. Visually, the stone is pure transparency. But when examined under flame or full moonlight, ancient practitioners claimed it shimmered just slightly out of sync with the world around it. Not in color, but in the presence. Some believe that's why clear quartz was called the crystal that shows the path, because it doesn't just reflect light, it reflects the moment just after clarity has been achieved. The second before a dream becomes a vision, as jewelry, authentic ritual-grade clear quartz is usually not cut into traditional gemstones. Instead, it's often worn raw, pointed down near the solar plexus or forehead, depending on intent. In Tibetan monasteries, full quartz cylinders were placed at the center of prayer wheels, amplifying mantras in silent repetition. And while commercial specimens sell for as little as $20, certain museum-grade, naturally terminated pieces, especially those tied to known temples or recovered from sealed tombs, have fetched over $45,000 at private spiritual auctions. But collectors don't buy these pieces for sparkle. They buy them for history and for what some still believe they hold: a memory, a voice, a way forward. whispered not through sound, but through a dream. That's clear quartz, the crystal that shows the path. And for some, the only map they ever trusted. The path has been revealed. But light alone isn't enough to cross into the dream. What comes next? It is a guide, not one you see, but one thing you feel. In many cultures, this next stone was kept near the feet of the sleeping, because it didn't lift you upward. It anchored you as you drifted. Shamans believed it absorbed residual fear, that it caught the final tremor of the body before the soul stepped away. It has no sharp edges, no bright colors, just weight, just presence, and in that presence, many have found peace. Rankne, Lepidolite, the silence that calms nightmares, in the highlands of Brazil and the ancient granite folds of Zimbabwe. There's a soft violet mineral that crumbles easily between the fingers. But to those who understand its power, it's not weakness, it's release. Lepidolite is not a gemstone of brilliance or hardness. It was never carved into crowns, never offered to kings, but it has sat quietly beneath the pillows of thousands, from Buddhist monks to World War I nurses. Archaeologists discovered traces of lepidolite beads in 2,000-year-old burial sites in central Anatolia, but not near the chest or wrist. They were always placed near the head. It wasn't meant to protect the body, it was meant to quiet the mind, especially when sleep became a battlefield. Chemically, lepidolite is rich in lithium, the very element modern medicine uses to treat bipolar disorder and profound anxiety. However, ancient users were unaware of the formula. They only knew the effect. The Hopi in North America believed lepidolite drained the noise of troubled spirits. In medieval Czech monasteries, herbalists ground the stone into a fine dust, mixed it with honey and lavender, and buried it inside cloth dolls to ease children's night terrors. Some of these bundles have been recovered intact and still hold the scent. Unlike clear quartz, lepidolite isn't transparent. Its surface is soft, shimmering in hues of mauve, lilac, and silvery rose, thanks to tiny mica-like sheets layered like scales. Each flake catches light like a whisper, never too loud, never sharp. And perhaps that's why spiritual healers today still use it under the name, the Stone of Gentle Release. As jewelry, lepidolite is rarely faceted. It's smoothed into oval cabochons or palm stones, designed to be touched during episodes of stress or insomnia. Many intuitive practitioners recommend placing a raw chunk beside the bed, or taping a thin slice beneath the pillow, especially after trauma or surgery. On the collector's market, lepidolite isn't expensive. You won't find it in auction houses. But in the hands of someone grieving or someone trying to sleep through the weight of loss, it becomes priceless. In the dreamscape, where light flickers and thought softens, some believe lepidolite is what greets the soul first, not with words, not with symbols, but with a kind of silence, so deep even nightmares get lost in it. That is lepidolite, the silence that calms nightmares, the softest whisper in the world of dreams. Lepidolite anchored the dreamer, grounded the breath, silenced the edge between body and beyond. But once stillness is complete, light returns, not as a flash, but as a movement. The next stone was found in caves where monks slept facing no direction. Because they said dreams like light have no front or back, only layers, and this crystal shimmered, even in darkness. Some described it as the light that floats between thoughts. Others called it the stone of mirrored breath. Whatever name it took, one thing remained true. Its glow was never seen by those who forced it to be, only by those who drifted. Moonstone shimmered as the dream formed a shape, but not all messages come in light. Some arrive in silence, and in that silence, when the body sleeps and the breath forgets itself, a different kind of clarity begins. The next stone was never used to see, it was used to listen. Healers once placed it over the heart, not to activate emotion, but to let the soul speak without needing words. They said if the mind was too loud, Danburite would wait. Because it doesn't push the dream forward, it waits. For when the dreamer is finally still enough to hear. Rank 8th, Moonstone, the veil that opens when the world sleeps. No stone in human history has been more closely tied to the moon. then Moonstone, and no light has crossed more dreams than the one it carries beneath its surface. From the temples of ancient India to the river tombs of pre-Roman Gaul, Moonstone was never mined for its sparkle. It was harvested during lunar rites, chosen not by miners, but by priestesses. In Sri Lanka, where some of the world's most luminous moonstones still come from, ancient diggers refused to work under the sunlight. They believed only night harvests during waxing moons yielded stones that whispered through dreams. Scientifically, moonstone is a feldspar, its shimmer caused by adolescence, a ghostly glow that seems to hover just beneath the surface. But to those who revered it, that glow wasn't just light. It was a veil between the waking world and the one you walk through when your eyes are closed. In Roman mythology, the moonstone was believed to have formed from frozen moonlight. Diana, goddess of the hunt and the moon, was said to wear it on her forehead to see through deception, especially the kind that crept in while dreaming. In India, it was known as Chandrakanta, beloved of the moon. Young brides were given pieces not to show wealth, but to calm the mind before sleep and invite visions of the ancestors. Across Polynesia, seers would place moonstone in bowls of salt water, leaving them beneath the stars for 7 nights. When the surface of the water rippled under no wind, it meant a message was coming. Visually, moonstone is never fully clear. It carries an opalescent sheen, milky white, silver blue, sometimes peach or gray. In low light, the shimmer moves as if the stone is breathing. Not quickly, just enough to make you question what it's remembering. As jewelry, moonstone is favored in amulets, moon cycle rings, and especially third-eye pendants. Unlike most gems, it was rarely worn for power. It was worn to soften perception, to let the subconscious speak without being silenced by reason. Healers often place moonstone at the center of dream altars, surrounding it with feathers, water bowls, and herbs like mugwort and lotus. While commercial pieces range from $50 to $500 depending on size and origin, certain blue flash moonstones from Sri Lanka, mined by hand during lunar eclipses, have sold for over $8,000 in spiritual collector circles. But its value is never in the price, it's in the presence, in the way it quiets thought just enough for the soul to wander. Moonstone doesn't command, it doesn't protect, it opens, slowly, like a curtain being drawn back between two worlds. That is Moonstone, the dream gate veil, and for many across time, the first light they saw in the world behind the eyelids. Rank 7th Danburite, the light that speaks when the mind falls silent. Not all stones whisper through dreams. Some wait in complete silence until the dreamer becomes quiet enough to hear. Danburite was never discovered. It was noticed, glowing faintly beneath pale riverbeds in Connecticut, and later in the mountains of northern Mexico, where miners refused to touch it with metal. They believed iron would shatter its language, that Danburite didn't like noise, that it preferred peace before it would reveal anything at all. To geologists, Danburite is a calcium borosilicate crystal, typically colorless, but often appearing pinkish or golden under light. It forms in long, slender prisms, naturally striated like the keys of an instrument not meant for sound, but for frequency. Spiritual historians trace its first sacred use not to temples, but to caves. Hermits in pre-Buddhist Tibet placed Danburite points at the 4 corners of their sleeping space, not to keep danger out, but to invite something gentler in. The Japanese Shingon mystics referred to it as the lamp that speaks in stillness. They believed its light carried nonverbal instruction, the kind only received between waking and sleep. In the modern West, Danburite has become a favorite among intuitive healers and lucid dream practitioners. Not because it forces open the third eye, but it waits for permission. No pushing, no pulling. Just presence, held like breath between thoughts. Visually, it lacks the drama of diamonds or the fire of rubies, but in soft light, its clarity becomes radiant. A golden hue rises through its core, like a signal or a voice that never needed to shout. Danburite is often worn as a pendant near the heart or upper chest, not as decoration, but as a reminder that stillness is not absence, it's attention. In spiritual use, It's placed on the crown chakra during sleep meditations, or beneath the bed in mirrored pairs, to anchor a subtle presence without interfering with the dream itself. Though less known than quartz or selenite, Danburite from Charcas, Mexico, particularly stones over 10 carats with complete clarity, have reached up to $2,000 among high-frequency crystal collectors. But its true worth lies in how it feels, like holding light. That's not meant to shine outward, but in. Some say they've dreamt entire conversations while sleeping next to Danburite. Others say the dreams are always silent, but they wake up changed, not with answers, but with something far rarer, permission to ask better questions. That is Danburite, the light that speaks when the mind falls silent. When the mind falls silent, something begins to answer, not in thought, not in vision, but in something far older. Resonance. The next stone was once believed to be a fragment of sky, fallen not to earth, but into sleep. Its vibration wasn't loud, it wasn't sudden, it was pure, carried through dreams like a distant choir calling to a part of you that never honestly forgot where it came from. Sleepers who kept this crystal near reported dreams not of symbols, but of sound, clear, gentle, like a tone from another world that only the soul could hear. Rank 6. Celestite, the voice that sings where dreams touch heaven. Some stones glow, some guide, but Celestite sings, and it sings not with sound, but with something far more ancient. A frequency that only rises when the mind grows still and the dreamer begins to drift beyond the edge of sleep. Celestite, named after the Latin celestis, meaning heavenly, it was first found in raw clusters along the shores of Madagascar and Sicily, hidden in limestone caves where light rarely entered. Yet the stone gleamed, not like fire, like sky, pale blue, soft silver, and sometimes almost white, as if it remembered the atmosphere before words were born. In ancient Mesopotamia, priests believed celestite crystals echoed the harmonics of the gods. Tablets described dreamers sleeping beside sky stones who awoke claiming they'd heard names, not from this world, but from beyond it. In Egypt, tiny fragments of celestite were found embedded in amulets shaped like open mouths, a ritual symbol for opening the soul's voice in the afterlife. To geologists, celestite is a strontium sulfate, often forming in fragile clusters that shatter under pressure. But spiritually, it is said to be one of the few stones that vibrates at a frequency close to the angelic plane. Mediums, channelers, and dream workers across centuries have placed celestite clusters in altars near the bed, surrounded by feathers, bells, and sometimes a bowl of water to carry sound into the dream space. Unlike other stones, celestite isn't worn often. It's too soft, easily scratched, easily broken. But that fragility may be why it's so powerful. It doesn't protect with force. It invites. Invite what exactly? Some say messages. Some say presence. Others describe waking with a melody still ringing in their ears, one they have never heard before, but felt they'd always known. Tibetan monks believed celestite wasn't a stone, but a frozen note, trapped in mineral form, waiting for a dream deep enough to thaw it. Under moonlight, a polished celestite sphere appears to pulse, not steadily, not predictably, like something trying to breathe through silence. As a collector's gem, high-grade celestite from Madagascar or Ohio, with perfect crystal radiance, can range between $500 to $5,000, depending on size and formation. But it is rarely bought to display. It's kept in quiet rooms, next to journals, incense, and unanswered questions. Dreams touched by celestite are rarely remembered in words, but the feeling stays, a lightness, a harmony, a knowing that you were not dreaming alone. That is celestite, the voice that sings where dreams touch heaven. What you've seen so far are stones that open the door, that waits beside the dreamer. That whisper is just loud enough for the soul to follow. But in the next 5, we don't just hear the dream, we enter it. These are not tools, they are companions that walk beside us through memory, grief, silence, and light. If you've stayed with us this far, take a breath, let go of thought, and follow the glow deeper. Rank 5. Angelite, the silence that wraps you in sleep. Not all dreams are meant to be explored. Some are meant to rest in. Angelite is a stone of presence, not movement, not activation, just stillness. The kind that doesn't demand your attention, but protects it. It was first identified in Peru, near the snowy plateaus where clouds touch the mountains. The locals called it Piedra del Angel, stone of the angel, and they didn't wear it. They slept near it. They placed it in bundles with herbs and feathers and left it under beds. For the newborn, the dying, or the grieving. Angelite is a form of anhydrite, calcium sulfate without water. And when exposed to moisture, it begins to break down. That fragility made it sacred, a reminder that proper protection doesn't come from hardness, but from the presence and silence. In ancient burial caves of the Andes, archaeologists discovered angelite tucked between layers of wool and obsidian, as if to balance the shadow with softness. It was never meant to overpower, only to hold. Spiritually, angelite is said to resonate with the throat and crown chakras, but its real gift is energetic insulation. Many who work with dreams say angelite creates a chamber, a bubble of peace, where dreams can unfold without intrusion. The stone appears pale blue, almost powdery, like condensed sky, sometimes with soft white clouds frozen inside. Under candlelight, it doesn't shine. It glows inward, like a sleeping breath. As jewelry, angelite is rarely cut into sharp shapes. It's rounded, smoothed, and often worn over the heart or placed under the pillow. Healers caution never to submerge it in water, not out of fear, but because it reminds us, even stone can be gentle. Its use today has grown quietly among sleep therapists, Reiki practitioners, and those navigating grief and loss. Not to force clarity, but to offer safe passage through the night. On the market, polished angelite ranges from $30 to $300, but high-vibration pieces from Peru, especially those blessed in traditional ceremonies, they are passed by hand, not bought, and they often carry prayers etched in the grain. Those who dream near angelite report a distinct pattern. The dreams are slower, the air inside them is softer, and when fear arises, it never stays. In that way, angelite isn't a stone of visions, but with permission to rest, to let the soul exhale. That is angelite, the silence that wraps you in sleep. Wrapped in angelite's silence, the dreamer no longer drifts. They begin to float. And somewhere between stillness and surrender, a new kind of light appears. Not outside the dream, but within it. It does not blind. It does not chase shadows. It breathes, softly, rhythmically, like the memory of a star too old to name. That light has a form. It's crystalline. It's weightless. It's waiting. Rank 4. Apophyllite, the light that breathes where dreams begin. All dreams begin somewhere, not in thought, not in memory, but in light. A light too soft to see, yet too present to ignore. That light has a name, Apophyllite, and to those who've worked with it, it doesn't just shine, it breathes. First discovered in the volcanic basalt beds of India, Apophyllite forms in transparent to milky white pyramids, often arranged in radiant clusters, like frost that learned to float. Local spiritualists call it Chandriya Svaraka, the star of gentle insight. And before it was ever sold, it was placed above doorways, beneath beds, or at the center of dream altars made from clay and ash. In temple ruins outside Pune, archaeologists found a collapsed chamber where every corner was lined with glowing apophyllite still intact. The walls bore symbols of sleep, birds, and open palms, suggesting the room wasn't for a ceremony, but for crossing between this world and whatever lay behind the eyes. Geologically, apophyllite is a hydrated potassium-calcium silicate with exceptional clarity and high water content, making it a powerful conductor of subtle energy. But for those who keep it close, it is more than a crystal. It is the moment before dreams form shape, the breath before the vision, the pause before the subconscious begins to speak. Its light refracts like a diamond, but never dazzles. It pulses slowly, a silent rhythm that feels alive in low light. Dream workers often say, Apophyllite doesn't bring visions. It prepares the space for them. That's why it's placed beside the bed, not under the pillow, on windowsills not worn, because it doesn't enter the dream, it welcomes it. High vibration pieces from India, especially green apophyllite, are the most prized, with radiant clusters fetching between $300 and $3,000, depending on clarity and geometric integrity. But value here is measured differently. Those who use it say apophyllite helps retrieve dreams that were never spoken, or return from them with memories that feel borrowed, yet deeply inexplicably known. They say you don't fall asleep near apophyllite, you arrive. That is apophyllite, the light that breathes where dreams begin. The breath of light has opened the gate. Apophyllite has done its part. But beyond that first glimmer, the dream doesn't float. It descends into chambers the waking mind has never mapped, into passageways woven from memory, longing, and symbols too old to translate. Here sound bends, time folds, and what you see is not always what was. Some say these corridors exist in every dream, but only a few stones can anchor the traveler. Stones not of surface, but of structure, not of color, but of connection. Rank 3, Scolecite, the thread that drifts through sleeping worlds. Some dreams arrive like a scene, others like a whisper, but those guided by Scolecite drift in threads, long white lines that wind through sleeping worlds, silently stitching memories, images, and emotion into something whole. Scolecite was never prized for brilliance. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't glow. It flows. In the quiet volcanic valleys of Maharashtra, India, and the fissures of ancient basalt in Iceland, Scolecite forms in slender, needle-like structures, some straight. Others are woven together like the roots of breath. To geologists, it's a hydrated calcium aluminum silicate belonging to the zeolite family, known for absorbing and exchanging energy like a sponge. But to dream workers, monks, and lucid travelers across centuries, Scolecite isn't a mineral, it's a channel. In Vedic sleep rituals, Scolecite was placed along the spine, each point aligned with a chakra, not to awaken energy, but to untangle it. Some temples in southern India still keep bundles of raw Scolecite in sacred rooms used for night pilgrimage, where seekers attempt to cross dreams not to escape, but to witness. When held during meditation, many report a slow internal shift. Thoughts become images, images become movement, and somewhere in the drift, a feeling arrives of going somewhere not with the body, but with the thread of the soul itself. Visually, Scolecite is snow white, with fine internal needles that shimmer when moved under soft light. Polished pieces seem to ripple beneath the surface, not with color, but with structure. Healers describe it as the gentle, unwinding stone, used primarily with people who wake up remembering fragments and want to stitch them together. In the collector's world, high-quality Scolecite specimens from Maharashtra or Brazil range between $100 and $2,000, depending on formation and intact crystal sprays. But it's rarely worn. Like a bridge, it is meant to be crossed, not displayed. Sleepers who keep Scolecite under their pillow often report dreams with paths, ladders, hallways, or tunnels of light that bend gently, never rushing, always leading somewhere unknown, but familiar. Some believe Scolecite isn't a dreamstone. It's the space between dreams, the tissue, the thread, the connection between the soul and sleep. That is Scolecite, the thread that drifts through sleeping worlds. Scolecite teaches us to drift, through layers, through timelines, through quiet corridors built from our reflections. But every journey through sleep must reach a threshold, a place not made of silence, but of a sudden light. Not harsh, not loud, but sharp enough to wake something ancient inside the dreamer. In that moment, memory burns, symbols align, and the traveler finally remembers that they were never dreaming, they were returning. Only one stone marks that threshold. A stone said to spark inner sight, not with visions, but with knowing. Rank 2, Phenakite, the light that strikes just before awakening. There is a moment, just before the dream ends, a flash, brief, blinding, and silent. It's not a voice, not a symbol, just pure awareness, crashing through the illusion, like lightning behind closed eyes. That moment has a name, Phenakite. First discovered in the Ural Mountains of Russia, Phenakite forms in clear or honey-colored crystals. So radiant were they that they were often mistaken for diamonds. Its name comes from the Greek phenakos, meaning the deceiver. But the only thing Phenakite ever deceived was the eye, not the soul. In early Vedic and Lemurian practices, Phenakite was never used to induce dreams. It was placed at the forehead during near-death rites, to ignite a vision not of this world, but of the self beyond form. Some say it doesn't help you sleep, it helps you wake, at the deepest level. In meditation, Phenakite often triggers sharp bursts of inner imagery, flashes of landscapes never visited, symbols never studied, and emotions without a source, but full of truth. Energy workers speak of crown fire, a moment when Phenakite is held above the head and the body feels weightless, the breath suspended, as if time itself were no longer necessary. Visually, it's unassuming. No colors, no fire. But beneath its clarity lies a density of charge. Some say even touching it leaves a vibration in the palm. For minutes after contact, high-quality Phenakite from Madagascar, Brazil, or Russia can command staggering prices, up to $10,000 per carat, especially in uncut forms used for lightwork. But few who use it ever sell it. Because Phenakite doesn't bond with the eye, it bonds with intention. And once it's aligned with a dreamer, it becomes a catalyst. Those who keep Phenakite near while dreaming report lucid shifts that feel outside time. Not narrative, but awakening. Not a message, but a realization. They don't wake up from the dream. They wake up within it. And in that clarity, even the soul stands still for a moment, to witness itself. That is Phenakite, the light that strikes just before awakening. With Phenakite, the dreamer awakens, not to the world, but to the self. But what comes after awakening? Beyond light, beyond silence, beyond the moment of knowing, there is something older, something that does not speak, because it was the first to dream. A crystal not born in fire, but in time itself. It has no language, no edge, no purpose, except to remember, and it remembers everything. Rank 1, Herkimer Diamond, the memory that carried the first dream, before the body, before the voice, before the first word was ever spoken. There was a dream, and that dream still lives inside a crystal so clear it remembers everything. Herkimer Diamond, misnamed yet unchallenged. Not a diamond at all, but quartz, so pure, so ancient, it formed 500 million years ago in the bedrock of what is now upstate New York. In deep, pressurized dolostone caverns, this crystal grew, uncut, untouched, into perfect double-terminated forms, meaning it didn't need Earth's carving, it was born already complete. Native Haudenosaunee tribes called them sky stones, believing they held the dreams of ancestors who had passed but not forgotten. They were placed near newborns or buried beside elders, so that memory would not be lost between worlds. Unlike other quartz, Herkimer holds light in a way that doesn't scatter. It holds, as if something inside is still watching, still listening, still waiting. Crystal healers speak of Herkimer not as a stone, but as a vessel, a recorder of emotional frequency, a mirror for inner timelines. And when placed near the pillow, many report dreams not from the self, but from before the self. Visions of past lives, forgotten languages, memories that do not belong, but somehow feel known. In laboratory terms, Herkimer quartz vibrates at some of the highest frequencies ever recorded for natural silica. Some scientists speculate that its unique clarity comes from absolute stillness during formation. It was never disturbed, never cracked, never broken open. It simply remembered. High-grade Herkimer diamonds can sell for $500 to $15,000, especially those with fluid inclusions, tiny bubbles of ancient atmosphere trapped inside. Inclusions so old, they may contain the very air that surrounded the Earth's first forests. But value here, it can't be set in dollars. This is not a crystal to wear, it's one to keep near. When asking, where did I come from? Or better, what did I forget that I once knew? Those who dream with Herkimer close don't describe visions. They describe returning to a place where the first story was written, not in ink, not in sound, but in silence, caught inside a crystal. That is Herkimer, the memory that carried the first dream. Some stones guide the dreamer, some wait, and a few whisper truths you weren't sure you wanted to hear. If one of these light stones spoke to you tonight, even in silence, let it stay with you. And if you'd like more journeys like this, don't forget to subscribe to Gemstone Kingdom and leave a quiet like, so we know you're listening too. Because in our next episode, we leave the realm of light and step into something far darker. Beneath ancient altars, behind forbidden rituals, lie stones once soaked in shadow and tied to names no longer spoken. Some called them cursed, others sacred, all of them red with history. Join us next time for the Bloodstones of Lucifer, 10 gems tied to the underworld. Until then, sleep gently and listen carefully. The stones never stop whispering. You just had to remember how to hear.